because a bunch of y'all couldn't trust a woman in a pantsuit to run this country. Thanks for that. Today in history, June 24th. Settle in, because this one's jam-packed. In 1947, the first ever European spots North America, likely Canada, because colonizers gotta colonize. In 1509, Henry VIII is crowned King of England. His wife, Catherine of Aragon, is crowned Queen Consort, and his codpiece was definitely compensating for something. In 1807, a grand jury in Richmond, Virginia convicted former Vice President Aaron Burr of treason and high crimes misdemeanor. He was later acquitted, although justice eventually prevailed, as his highest achievement is Leslie Odom Jr. playing him in the musical Hamilton. In 1948, communist forces cut off all land and water routes to West Germany and West Berlin, prompting Western allies to arrange the Berlin Airlift. It's almost like history repeats itself. In 1957, the Supreme Court ruled in Roth versus the United States that obscene materials are not protected as free speech in the First Amendment. Doesn't seem to stop all the red hat people, but whatever. In 1973, President but not for long Nixon concluded his summit with Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev. In 1983, the Space Shuttle Challenger, which had carried America's first woman astronaut into space, Sally Ride, landed safely at Edwards Air Force Base in California. Not surprisingly, Boeing had nothing to do with this one. In 1992, in a very tight decision, the Supreme Court reaffirmed its 30-year ban on school prayer, this time in graduation ceremonies. Kind of wish the Supreme Court would take its own advice. In 2020, these three men were indicted for the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. Arbery was shot running through his Georgia coastal neighborhood while being black. Men were all convicted of murder 2 years later. In 2021, a 12-story Florida condo building collapsed, killing 98 people. People often forget about this tragedy because it feels like the entire state of Florida is constantly on the brink of collapse. Also in 2021, an appeals court suspended Rudy Giuliani from practicing law in New York over false statements he made in court trying to overturn President Trump's loss in the election. Also in 2021, former Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi announces that a January 6th committee will convene and investigate the events of January 6th, and it yields some of the most entertaining primetime TV we had that year. In 2021, leaders of Indigenous groups in Canada announced that investigators had found over 600 unmarked graves at the former site of a residential school for Indigenous children. And I'll end this video as I began it, because colonizers gotta colonize. Oh wait, how could I forget? In 2022, the Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade, 50 years after the case established protections for abortion in this country, because a bunch of y'all couldn't trust a woman in a pantsuit to run this country. Thanks for that.